Test formats for testing grammar. Some test formats that test competence. There are two types of formats in testing competence. The first one is recognition. Among the formats in recognition are multiple choice items, error identification items, true and false items, pairing and matching items, and gap filling items. The first type of item is multiple choice items. Let's look at what are they. One of the characteristics is that they can be quite tricky because the answers may be very close. It's also difficult to test attitudes towards learning because students will just choose from the options given. Thus, knowledge is limited to the options provided. And it's also difficult to construct multiple choice items at higher levels. It also encourages guessing because the answers are provided and all answers have equal chance of getting it right. More than one option may be possible if you do not check through the answers thoroughly, and all options must be grammatically possible. The next item is the true and false item. These items do not demonstrate broader knowledge as the options are very limited and it's difficult to construct again in higher levels. However, because you only have two choices, whether true or false, so the guessing is also encouraged in this kind of items and it has 50-50 chance of getting it right. And it's also difficult to test attitudes towards learning because the options are provided that's true or false. Another type of recognition item is gap filling. Gap filling has context, thus there are many contextual clues within the passage. So there may be more than one option that is possible. However, in recognition type of items, options should be given for every blank. And the first gap must be offered as a sample. This also would be difficult to test attitudes towards learning as the options are already provided and knowledge is limited to these options. Limitations result in negative backwash and the focus should be on the aspect assessed. The next type of competence test is production. Now the first one was recognition, so the second one is production. Now some of the items of production type of assessment, you can have completion items, that is like filling in the blanks to complete a sentence, close or modified close, transformation items, paraphrasing, rearrangement, editing or error correction, combination and addition items, and items involving the changing of words. Another type of item in production is called close or C test. This is similar to gap filling, where you have a passage and there are blanks. However, the blanks are consistently numbered. For example, you would have every fifth word would be blanked out or every seventh word would be blanked out. Thus, we call it the nth word that is blanked out. So you may not have this consistency of parts of speech, especially for grammar, that a particular part of speech would be gapped because the nth word may not be in the same part of speech. So some of the characteristics and challenges that students will face in this diagram, it tests students' understanding of the whole language. More than one option may be possible. because there are no options given in the closed test. The first letter may be offered as a sample. Difficult to test attitudes towards learning because it is contextual based, so you can't run away from that particular answer or answers surrounding the similar meaning. Some words may be impossible to guess, and this closed test can test students' IQ rather than language proficiency because they look at the contextual clue and they pick up the idea and answer. So it is not based on referring to grammar rules that they would answer or provide the answer for the blank. And it can be quite biased because it may be difficult for some students, especially if they are lower in proficiency. Sentence construction is another type of production format. It can have more than one option that's possible. And because this is a sentence construction, you would have capital letters and punctuations which may interfere with the production of the answer. It's also difficult to test attitudes because the construction of the sentence may be focused on a particular area and some context would be added to it. This kind of items can test students' IQ rather than language proficiency because of what the situation is given. And it can be difficult for some students, and this may be biased. Error correction or editing is another type of production format. It tests on recognition of mistakes and it doesn't stop there, but it goes further to test the production through corrections. Now, more than one correction may be possible. However, mistakes must be grammatically possible. Thus, this could be a good backwash as students can learn from here, and the more they practice, the better they become. And context is definitely essential because if you want to do the corrections, you must have the context. So when should we go for grammar recognition type of items? It is when more materials need to be covered. You want to test different levels of learning and you have very little time for scoring and you're not interested in evaluating how well a test taker can formulate a correct answer. And when you have a large number of test takers, because this requires quick marking and scoring. So, when should we go for grammar production items? This is when you want to evaluate a person's ability to formulate a correct answer. You have more time to score the items. You want to test a person's ability to apply concepts and information to a new situation. And you have a clear idea of the aspects and concepts that should be tested.